Today, I want to talk to you about subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. Remember that the denominator is the bottom number in a fraction, and when you're subtracting, you need to have like denominators or common denominators. If you don't, you can't subtract. That would be like subtracting apples from oranges. You can't do it because they're not the same thing. So that's what we're doing when we are subtracting and we are making like denominators. So we're going to be looking at this problem today. The PTA hosts a pizza party for the fifth graders. Elizabeth notices that there are 2.5 pizzas left. She eats 3/4 of a pizza. How much pizza is left after Elizabeth eats her portion? So the first thing we want to do is think about what would be a good equation for this. Remember that when somebody eats something, it's subtracting. We are subtracting and having less pizza. So we're going to want to have a subtraction equation. So our equation is going to be 2.5 minus 3/4 equals n. We have 2.5 pizzas left. She's going to eat 3/4. So that's our equation. Now, to begin with, you'll probably notice we have 2 in the denominator and we have 4 in the denominator. So we don't have the same size of pieces. We need to make them the same size. You probably also notice that we have a mixed number. We have 2.5. We need to convert that to a fraction greater than 1. Some people call them improper fractions. There's nothing improper about them. It's perfectly fine to have a fraction greater than 1. So that's what I'll call it, is a fraction greater than 1. So to do that, the first step is to figure out how many fractional pieces we have. Well, you can see in our whole pizzas, if we divide them into halves, we have 4 fractional pieces. We also have this half here, which makes for 5 fractional pieces. And the size of those fractional pieces is halves. So our fraction greater than 1 is 5 halves. If you did not have a visual to look at, it'd be simple to do this mathematically. You begin by taking your whole number of pizzas, so 2, and you multiply that by the size of the pieces, by the denominator. So 2 times 2 is 4, and then you add the numerator, which is this last piece, for 5 pieces, for 5 halves. So our equation is now 5 halves minus 3/4 equals n. But we still have those unlike denominators. So we need to convert one or both of the fractions. Luckily, 2 is a multiple of 4, and that means we don't have to convert the 3/4. I love that when we can leave one the same. So we're just going to convert our 5 halves into fourths. To do that, we ask ourselves, well, if I want to make the 2 in the denominator of 4, what do I need to do to it? Well, I multiply, right? 2 times 2 is 4. Whatever you do to the denominator, you need to do to the numerator so that the fractions stay equivalent. So we have 10 over 4 because 2 times 5 is 10 and 2 times 2 is 4. 10/4 minus 3/4 equals n. So now it's pretty easy. We have converted our pizzas into the same denominator, and you can see we now have fourths in our pizzas. It's pretty easy to now just subtract the 3 pieces. We'd say she's going to eat 3/4, which leaves us with 7/4. 10 minus 3 equals 7. N equals 7/4. Now, at this point in time, you may want to leave it like this. Sometimes, especially if you're going on to do more math, it's easiest to leave it as a fraction greater than 1. Sometimes it's better to convert it back to a mixed number. It just depends on what you're doing mathematically and also on what your teacher tells you. So to convert it back to a mixed number, you need to ask yourself, how many whole pizzas do I have? Well, I have one whole pizza. 4/4 is the same as 1 whole. So subtract the 4/4 from the 7/4. That gets us 3/4. We have 1 whole pizza and 3/4. N equals 1 3/4 pizza. That's how much we had left after Elizabeth ate her portion.